More than just a pretty face. Chapter 14, Part 2. The communal psyche of the conqueror has never been persistently challenged by the narratives of the conquered in real time. It is an entirely new phenomena of human history, made possible, of course, by the internet. Okay, I said, and took a deep breath. Bisma was always telling me it was okay to take my time before responding to a question or an idea, instead of rushing to say whatever seemed right. Time, she said, brought clarity, or at least the possibility of it. So nowadays, people who are wronged can actually speak up while they're being harmed, which is different when how things were before. This makes it harder for governments oppressing other people to sell that oppression to their own population. Bisma gave me an encouraging nod. That's cool and everything, but I'm not sure what it has to do with Churchill. It doesn't have anything to do with him, Maddie said with a shrug. It does, however, have something to do with your project. You see, colonialism wasn't sold to the British populace as an enterprise of conquest. It was sold to them as moral enterprise by which they were civilizing the world and stewarding races who couldn't take care of themselves, improving them, trying to get them to live the kinds of lives that the British approved of. As Conrad points out in Hearts of Darkness, Bisma told me. That sounded very heavy metal band, but maybe Conrad was a lead singer or something. Right, Conrad, Darkness, totally got it. Anyway, the professor went on that kind of fiction is a lot harder to perpetuate now for any significant period of time. The truth is more difficult to suppress in this age of lies than it has ever been. Like the claim that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction in the Second War there, Bisma supplied. That came apart fast. Not fast enough, I said. In terms of history, Bisma insisted it happened very quickly. There isn't going to be any book written that will say those weapons existed. She's right, Maddie said. You see, the way the history of our time is written will be different than the way history has ever been written before. The narrative and the counter-narrative will have to learn to exist at the same time. It is remarkable, if you think about it. I frowned, trying to figure out how Bisma thought this would help me with the Renaissance man. I'd thankfully never come close to drowning before, but I imagine this is what it felt like. I was surrounded by information, and it was getting a little difficult for my brain to breathe. Still, I tried. Having awesome pizza helped. It was something real, tangible, and delicious that I understood completely. So I said, after I was done with my next bite, what you're saying is that the British were able to let the Indians starve because he didn't see things, didn't see the Indians even from the Indian point of view. Precisely. Dr. O'Para wiped her hands on a napkin, having finished her slice. In order to justify oppression of the other, one has to believe and has to get all participants in that oppression to believe that the other is somehow fundamentally different. Do you think that the people who put my ancestors on boats and ripped them away from Africa believed black men and women were just as human as they were? No, I said. They thought they were better than the Africans. And the British thought they were better than the Indians, the professor said. I believe future history will be different, though, because these narratives of superiority will be challenged by narratives of equality. The way we remember the world as it will be entirely new. That sounds wonderful, Dr. O'Para said. Sorry, Maddie. I said, but what about right now? I mean, racism is still a problem. Even when everyone has a voice, people still aren't equal. Why is that? An excellent question. I would suggest you had this. What is happening now is not a purview of historians. She glanced at Bisma and smiled. It's rather the domain of Renaissance women. And one suppresses all other genders as well. I didn't say anything for a while, thinking about what the professor had said. There's something important here. I just had to figure it out. Maddie smiled at Bisma. Always a delight to see a mind at work. Sorry, I said. Not at all. I was being perfectly sincere. Thank you, Professor. It was super nice of you to speak to me. It was fun. Besides, Bisma's an excellent student. I always make time for those when I come across them. Still, I insisted. Thank you so much. My pleasure, Danielle. Then turning to Bisma, she said, I can see why you like him. I swear to God, Bisma said as he walked away from the cheese board. I didn't tell her I liked you. Obviously, she just assumed. So you're staying So you're saying you don't like me? That's a kick in the nuts. Bismuth, who just stopped blushing, started going a little pink again. No, I mean, yes, just, entirely platonically. Bisma, yes, I'm messing with you. She exhaled. Thank you for setting that up. Not a problem. So, what do you think? She's awesome, but was it any help for the contest? Bisma asked. The question she raises is interesting enough to be your thesis. What question? Would Churchill or the British have acted differently if Indians had a voice and could force the British to see them as their equals, with lives that had been the same value as their own? I scratched the back of my head. It sounded good. I didn't think Tippett would go for it, though. He said the same thing that I said to Dr. Okpara. If white supremacy exists in our world, where everyone can potentially find their voice, and why would it have been any different for Churchill or the Britishers, who set up an empire before him? It's not enough to have a voice you can speak up for yourself. I said, you need something more. Like what? I shrugged. I don't know. What do I know is Tippett. What I do know is that Tippett will expect me to figure it out. Bisma's hand brushed mine, like it had been when we gone out together for the first time, but it didn't pull away like she had then. I have to admit, I stopped thinking about the Renaissance man for a second. She didn't. Well, at least we know we can make the canvas bigger right now. You can talk about, you've stopped listening to me, haven't you? Yes, I said, sorry. And what shiny object caught your attention this time? You. Oh. We walked in silence for a while. Then she said, what about me? Just realized, you're helping me a lot, and there really isn't any reason for you to. And I just was thinking I never said thank you, so it's okay. This is what I do for fun. Hang out at the library with dudes you've turned down for arranged marriage? She laughed. Whatever. I didn't turn you down. You turned me down. I never turned you down. Bisma raised her eyebrows at me. I mean, okay, so I did. If I hadn't, my mom was going to start making inquiries. I didn't think if you wanted her digging around your past. She started to nod. Then she shook her head. What? I asked. I don't know. I think my life would have been a lot different if I met you. Someone like you, earlier. I think I could have been happy. There's still time to be happy. No, she said softly. I'm sure there's not. I'm not sure there is. Sarab texted me to remind me that I'd promised to attend a lecture at the mosque and by a big-time speaker. Honestly, I couldn't remember making such a promise, but he insisted I'd done so earlier in the semester. His word was good enough for me. I never did catch the name of Sarab's famous speaker, but that was because I arrived late. It wasn't entirely my fault. I just went to the wrong mosque. When I finally got there to the right place, finding parking was a pain. The lot was packed. There's a cult of personality that builds up around Muslim preachers. They're a lot like rock stars with huge numbers of YouTube followers, lectures that sell out auditoriums, and devoted fans who dote on their every word. This guy, whoever he was apparently no different. I tried to find Sarab, but it was impossible. Eventually, I gave up and just decided to sit in the back. The speaker was slender, charismatic man, probably just over 40, with a habit of making dad jokes that somehow everyone around me seemed to find hilarious. He was articulate and engaging, and even though I didn't really want to be there that much, I found myself actually paying attention, at least for around 10 minutes, which I'm pretty sure is a personal record for me. He was speaking about something called Qalb Salim, which can be translated in a few different ways. A sound heart, an unstained, pure heart, an undamaged heart. It was a spiritual state that Muslims were supposed to aspire to because the day of judgment, according to the Quran, nothing would save people except for having a heart like that. The rest of the lectures was a discussion about practical applications that led to such a spiritual state, and I admit I zoned out until the call of the prayer was given and the congregation rose to answer it. Afterward, I found Sarab leaning against the wall in the mosque courtyard, staring up at the night sky. The moon was dying and hoping to be reborn at the same time. How's it going? Sarab seemed to think about it for a moment, and then let a shaky sigh. I don't know. It's frightening to think that Allah will look at our hearts one day and know the darkness within. the things we did, the things we failed to do. We'll be able to hide nothing from him when the final judgment comes. Well, I said, he's like all-knowing, right? So it isn't like we're hiding anything from him now. Schraub looked at me out of the corner of his eye, then began to laugh. It echoed around the emptying mosque and became a horrible sound as it folded upon itself, carrying on after he had fallen silent. It's amazing how simple wisdom can be, isn't it? I frowned, unsure if I'd just been insulted. I guess it'll be different, I think, to stand in front of the Creator and have him ask you why your heart wasn't pure and why you fell into sin. Don't you agree? I don't really think about that stuff. What do you think about? Food, girls, music? He shook his head. All of those are dangerous, and God created them all. Sarab didn't take it as a joke, as a test, not as a diversion. I've never been good at tests, I said, and then attempted to change the topic. Hey, I've been meaning to ask you, was it true that you said in English that time about getting the fragment of a bomb that had gone off for your 16th birthday? Of course, I never lie. Remember when we went to Pakistan a couple years ago, a whole summer without Kaval Savari sightings? Hell yeah, I remembered it. It would have been brutal and not as hot as usual. Anyway, my mother's father lives in Afghanistan. Kaval didn't get to go, but I went north to visit him. When I had a birthday, my cousins gave me a piece of spent bomb. Every boy there gets one when he turns 16. That's weird. Schraub let out a sigh. It's a joke when there is a drone strike and the Americans end up killing a bunch of people along the person they were actually aiming for. They just say any boy or man of fighting age that died was an enemy. That way, when dead civilians are counted, the numbers look better. Really? I asked. Why would they do that? Because Americans care about perception more than they care about truth. That's not true. No? Have you heard of Kataba? I shook my head. It's a village near where my grandfather lives. American soldiers thought that a party celebrating the birth of a newborn baby was a terrorist gathering or something. They stormed it, killed 5 people, 2 of them pregnant women, 1 teenage girl. So what do? The soldiers took knives and dug the bullets out of the women and said that the men they killed were very bad men. The women had already been tied up and dead when the Americans got there. They tried to make their own victims seem like monsters. Do you know why? No, I admitted softly. Because they only cared about what things look like, not what things really are. They tell stories that make them look noble and innocent, because if those are the only stories people hear, then those are the stories they will believe. I stood beside him for a while, staring at the deepening night. Then I said, we, us, what? You kept saying they when you talking about Americans. We're Americans too, It isn't they, it's us, we. Sarab nodded and placed a hand over his heart, his tired eyes fixed upon the unlit heavens above. I groaned as I got into my van and turned on the ignition. How did Sarab get through life with a head so full of heavy thoughts all the time? I didn't want that much truth in my life. I just wanted to be happy. And people who know a lot of stuff can't be happy. That's why they say ignorance is bliss. It's in the Bible. No, seriously. What tree was it Adam and Eve were forbidden to eat? That's right, the tree of knowledge, just saying. It's worth thinking about, just so you know. Not too much. The problem with thoughts, though, is that they're contagious. And even though I didn't want them, I caught them from Sarab. It'd be a while before I was cured again. So I sat there brooding on my way home, trying to figure out how to help Sarab, because my friend did need help. Unlike Zara, I didn't think that this being religious was by itself an issue. The real problem was that religion was the only thing Sarab ever seemed to think about anymore, and nothing anyone said that wasn't connected to Islam seemed to get through to him. Some people, even if their beliefs were outdated or imbalanced or just wrong, seem to be unable to appreciate the validity of other experiences. I could tell my dad over and over that it was okay to be a chef. I could tell Caval that going to college to get a higher paying job wasn't the only way for a man to be worthy of her. Bisma could tell her marriage prospects that her past didn't define who she was. None of it mattered because the people were trying to convince could only hear one story which seemed perfect to them. That's why it wouldn't have mattered to Churchill if the Indians had possessed a voice. That's why it didn't matter to racists today, to bigots today, that there were black and Muslim and queer and other oppressed voices. They just embraced the narrative they always embraced. The existence of other narratives didn't change anything. The evil that let 3 million people starve in the Bengal famine wasn't that different from the evil that was with us still. It was the same evil that led those soldiers to lie about the people they murdered in Catawba. That evil was the inability to recognize the humanity in experiences that were not your own and experiences that seemed alien. So, in a way, Caval had been right. She asked me why it mattered what Churchill had done almost a century ago. By itself, it didn't. Whether Churchill was a hero or not, or monster, was not a problem we really needed to face. The problem we had to face was a story that Churchill had been monstrous. The colonial mindset, the mindset of supremacy based on race and nationality, was still alive. This was not about Churchill the man. This was about Churchill the legacy. Parked in the driveway of my parents' house, I called Bisma to tell her I had a thesis.